The phone wouldn't stop ringing, not once, not twice, but over and over like it was daring me to pick up, and I swear the whole floor held its breath with me as that screen flashed a country code I didn't recognize. My name is Marla Jenkins, night staff at Brightspan Systems in downtown Dallas, and what I did next wasn't in any handbook, but it's the part of the story that changed everything. One late shift, an empty corner office, a stack of papers, bleeding highlighter, and a choice nobody expected me to make. I've worked nights most of my life, you know how that goes. The building exhales, the day people vanish. The lights run cold and your thoughts bounce off glass until they sound like someone else's. And if you do your job perfectly, no one even wonders who did it. I'm 56, 3 grown kids, a knee that talks back rent, that never forgets my name, and a mop bucket with one squeaky wheel that snitches on me in every hallway. And I keep to myself because quiet is cheaper than trouble. But I'm not blind. You learn to read rooms when you clean them, the tone folks use with clients versus reception, the way a name gets said when money follows it, the way executives whisper in elevators like teenagers with secrets. And that week I'd heard 2 suits mutter about slipping a clause in late. They won't notice until after signature, and it put a chill in my stomach I couldn't mop away. So there I was in Elliot Carr's office, the big one with the glass that pretends to be sky, the desk wide enough to land a drone a half glass of water like a promise. He meant to keep papers scattered, yellow slashes through paragraphs that looked important enough to cost somebody a job. And that phone just kept ringing. I told myself, walk away, rules are rules. Don't touch what isn't yours. You know what I mean. But there's a sound a phone makes when someone needs help for real. And that was the sound. So I picked up and said Brightspan Systems, trying to make my voice sound like it belonged in that chair. A man came through the line like he'd been shouting at a closed door for an hour, tight accent, low on patience, high on stakes. Finally, someone. This is Matteo Rinaldi from Milan. I've called all evening. Where is Mr. Carr? The final draft includes a perpetual single vendor clause, never agreed if it isn't corrected by morning. My board pulls the partnership. I'm not a lawyer, never pretended to be. But I know a lock when I hear one perpetual single vendor. That's a trap with nice shoes, and while my heart punched my ribs, I told him the truth. I was night staff, no authority, but I heard him and I promised I'd get the message in front of the right eyes as soon as the sun clocked in. And there was this long silence where I pictured him staring out over a sleeping city, the way I was 2 strangers holding one fraying string. And he said sunrise no later and hung up. I should have walked, then gone back to straightening chairs. People never sit in right. But the phone rang again, and yeah, that happened. And he asked me the question that burned. Was this a mistake or a trick, because he could live with the first, but not the second? And I said, what I've learned from a lifetime of low pay and high dignity, that people add things when they're scared or greedy when they want to prove they're in charge. And it isn't smart, and it isn't fair, but it's human. And I asked him for the night, just that, to let us fix what needed fixing. And he didn't thank me, not yet. He just said, "Rise again," like a church bell, and the line went quiet. The rest of the night moved like honey, slow and sticky vacuum hum, turning into prayer, my mind replaying the words, perpetual and single and vendor, while the windows traded black for the lighter, black where hope lives, and at 7 on the dot, the elevator doors opened, and in came Mr. Carr with the posture of a man who always knows the answer, and his chief of staff, Priya, who carries focus like other people carry perfume. He saw the phone off the hook, saw me, and I could see him trying to place a stranger inside his morning, and I told him everything in one breath, the calls, the clause, the deadline. And Priya snatched a folder like it had been misbehaving, flipped pages, eyes narrowing. That clause wasn't in the last internal version, and before I could blink, a sales VP named Darren materialized in the doorway, doing that smile-frown mix you learn at expensive seminars, and the room went cold around him when Priya pulled version history on the screen dit at 11:43 p.m. Author tag, Darren. There's a hush a building makes when trouble puts on a tie, and we were standing in it, Darren saying it was a judgment call. Leverage Europe moves goalposts, all the words people use when they hope vocabulary can outrun the truth, and before my brain could scold my mouth, I said, or you could try respect, and my face went hot. But I didn't take it back. Mr. Carr didn't scold me either. He hit the speaker button, the line chirped across the ocean, and there was Rinaldi, raw but steady, and Mr. Carr said what needed saying. The clause should not have been included. It will be removed immediately. The partnership stands as agreed, and Priya already had notes on screen to append a line about no new constraints without written consent. And Darren tried again with that word precedent, but Carr cut it clean. The precedent is that we don't trick partners if we need leverage. We earn it. The call ended, and the silence after relief sounds like a heartbeat you didn't know you were missing. And then Mr. Carr did something. I didn't expect. He stepped toward me and said my name like it belonged in the building. Ms. Jenkins, you just saved us from a very public disaster. Not luck, judgment, courage, the right thing at the right time. And my hands didn't know where to go, because when you spend years being invisible, a spotlight feels like heat. And he asked how long I'd worked there, and I said 7 years, and he said 7, like it weighed something. And then he said, it ends today, not my job, the part where nobody knows my name, and he told Priya to convene a post-mortem and asked me to sit in if I wanted to say what I notice on the floor, that his people miss. And I wanted to say something smooth, but what came out was yes, just yes, like oxygen. The post-mortem was a glass room with a whiteboard big enough to pay my rent. Legal and sales and ops all lined up. Priya running point like a point guard who sees all 5 plays at once, and we walked it back, how approvals failed, how ego dresses up as strategy, how doors close around titles while paper gets left out in the open for night eyes to trip over, and they asked if we'd seen drafts before. I said all the time you trust closed doors too much and open eyes too little, and a couple folks chuckled, not because it was funny, but because truth can sound like a joke when it shows up uninvited. And Carr set up a nightline escalation route that actually goes somewhere, no punishment for being the person who cares. And Darren found a little humility lying around, and said he misread the room and the continent. Not an apology exactly, but ground gained is ground gained, and I let him keep a piece of pride because pride is heavy, and people drop it when they're tired. Word got around, like it always does, through elevators and side chats and the way a building's temperature changes when a lesson lands. And no, I didn't get rich. Let's not make this a fairy tale. But my paycheck stretched a little farther, and my name started getting used like it belonged to a person, and not just a uniform. And Priya would stop me on late days, you good. Need anything, and mean it. And Carr learned my kids' names like he was trying to fix a blind spot. And the same corridors felt less like a museum after hours, and more like a place where 2 shifts share one heartbeat. Here's the twist that sticks to my ribs, though. I wasn't authorized if it had gone wrong. I could have been walked out. If Rinaldi had been petty, he could have made me small for trying. If Carr had been thin-skinned, he could have called it insubordination, and that would have been that, so. What do you call it, when the right thing depends on the right people being big enough to see it? Lucky, brave, reckless, all 3 I still don't know. You know what I mean. What I do know is respect travels in circles. You send it out, and sooner or later it comes back, wearing a different coat. And buildings don't run on titles, they run on hands and eyes, and the kind of ears that can hear the difference between a ring and a warning. And sometimes the hero of the day is just the person who answered, because no one else did. So that's my story, the one where I picked up a phone that didn't have my name on it, and the world didn't end, it shifted an inch toward better. And you can say I crossed a line, or you can say I protected one. Maybe it's both, maybe that's why it matters. Tell me what you think in the comments. Was I right to answer? Or should I have walked away? Should companies trust night staff to step in? Or did I just get lucky with the boss and the client? Have you ever been the invisible person who saved a day? No one knew how to save. Drop your take, push back if you need to, or share your own moment. And if this hit you anywhere, you keep quiet. Send it to somebody who needs a reminder that what we do when the phone won't stop ringing, that's the part that tells the truth.